Karyn.
Hello, Pam. How are you on this fine day?
I'm well today. How are you on this fine day?
Yeah, I'm doing good. It's funny, I want to say, we're recording on Friday, so it's the last day of the week, and I'm getting ready for the weekend, but you just never know when somebody's going to listen to this. So I really shouldn't do that, but I just did, so I can't take
No,
it back.
I think that's cool because it puts into perspective, how our moods are. I mean, we talk about the weather all the time. I think it's fair to say it's Friday, so we're feeling, this particular
Well,
way.
so yeah,
Yeah.
today's
I mean, days of the week affect me just as much as the weather does. There's
yeah.
just something about that Thursday, Friday.
What does
I
that
mean, there's
say
a reason
about
why
us?
they, what's that?
What does it say about us that we're so susceptible to these outer forces on our mood? I don't know if that's a good thing or not, but we both are. Like,
Trust me.
I don't know if that's normal. Is that normal?
Well, I don't know. I don't know if most people are, but I think we're both super self-aware, and that's probably why we even know that.
And
So
very,
that part is probably too abnormal.
I think we're very in tune, both of us, because we have really good intuition and insight. And so I think we're very in tune to like anything, and it could be people. Sometimes when a person comes into your space, that changes your energy, and it could be for the better or the worse. Just like weather does that, and days of the week do that. I think you and I are susceptible to like any kind of outside energy coming in from yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And I try not to. I really do. I do. I have a lot of great little tactics to try to not let my mood get the best of me, but sometimes it just is what it is.
It just is, and it helps kind of explain why you are the way you are at a given time. But today it's all good because it's a Friday, and you and I have
Yeah.
weekends we're looking forward to, so it's all good.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And our topic is fun today. I know last week when we were talking about expectations, we kind of ended, you're so great about whenever we end a topic, you always come in with like, great little tips and things that people can do, to help themselves after a discussion that we've had. And I told you last week, you brought up your accept, adjust motto,
Yeah.
and as it pertains to expectations. And I said to you, okay, Karyn, I want you to think of a couple relationships that you've tried that model with, and so I don't know if you're ready or not, but can you think of anybody in your life that you had to use your expect honesty, accept what is, and your adjust your response motto?
Yeah, I think I can. I think that there's a few ways that I could give an example. Are you going to give an example too, or is it just me?
I'm going to let you do it.
Okay, so we're gonna rely on me. So if definitely pop in if you have anything to add to what
Okay, okay.
I laid, or if you think it's stupid,
I mean,
whatever. Just like
if I'm being truly honest with you, I could give you 100 examples of situations between my husband and I would say this, but I might embarrass him a little too much if I do that.
you know what? There's a couple things I could think of for my husband, but I think it could go a little bit too deep or dark for what we're looking for today. And again, like he might not want me to share those things, so I'm not going to do that. I'm going to share something about somebody who's past, somebody who's dead, so she can't disagree or agree. So it's really just a very one-sided thing. But I have to say, I think she would agree, and that's my mom. So, oh, there's so I was thinking of one scenario, but now I'm thinking of another. But let me just go with this. It is a little bit of a downer, but I've made my peace with it, so I'm going to say that ahead of time. So, audience, please don't worry about this or think that I'm still in this or anything, because I've made my peace with this a long time ago, because that's where the acceptance comes in. But so when my mother was diagnosed with liver cancer, I had expectations because I have a different set of beliefs about the liver than my mom does. So she comes at everything because she was a former nurse. She comes at everything from a medical perspective. But I have this interesting philosophy about organs that is not rooted in science in any way, shape, or form. And it's about how we hold emotions in our organs. And I'm getting woo woo here, so people are going to think I'm crazy. But and there are some people who are listening, like especially my cheeky podcast people, who will be like, yes, of course. So everybody has a different opinion, but it is a little woo woo. So the liver is the toxin release organ. That's medical. But there are some who believe, and I believe this, that it also holds emotions. So if you have a toxic liver, it's not just connected to the food you eat. So it might seem really woo woo, but if you think about it, it actually can be connected to science. Because if you are an emotional eater, if you eat due to emotion, that is going to, you might be eating crappy food, and those things would then impact your liver. So there actually is a scientific connection to it. But there's this belief that the liver is like the anger organ. It's actually over here. So the anger organ. And so you're storing that. And so I'm thinking to myself, oh, she's going to recognize this. She's been diagnosed with liver cancer. And besides the medical, because I believe in the medical, besides the medical, now this is a great opportunity. She's going to lose some weight. She's going to change her diet. She's going to maybe get into therapy, release some of this anger. So that's my expectation. Because in my mind, when you've been given a terminal diagnosis, you would want to do everything you possibly could do to live as long as you could live, right? So that's what I'm thinking, that that's what she's going to do. But she had to be really honest with me that that wasn't the path that she was going to take. And I was really honest with her that that was a real struggle for me. And so for a long time, even to talk about it with other people, like especially people in my more holistic world, my community of more woo woo people, they were like, well, she's not doing those things. And then finally, I was working with a nutritionist at the time, and she said, Karyn, you have to stop. That might be your path, but that's not her path. You have to, you're going to just be miserable. This is going to make you sick. You have to let your mom choose her way, right? And so I had this expectation that she would choose my way, and I fought her a lot. Like I made her go to this naturopathic doctor and this herbalist, and she would go and then she would do none of the things that they recommended. And my dad would try to get her to eat healthy. It was just none of it was for her. It wasn't for her. And you know what? After being given a 6-month diagnosis, she lived for 6 years. So maybe her way was the right way, right? And so after that person put that seed of thought in my mind, I was able to finally accept that. By accepting her and her choices and what she wants to do for her body, even though that's not the choice that I would make, I was able to accept her path. And it was so freeing to say that I did everything that I could do to help her, and she did everything she could do the way that she wanted. Like she lived out the rest of her life the way that she wanted to. She would have been miserable doing it any other way. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I love that.
So that's a case where I really had to alter my expectations. And some people might think that's not a big deal, but if you know the journey that I took from the medical system and all my health challenges, and the journey that I took to finding healing in a very different way from what the medical system said, it really has shaped, colored, impacted the way that I see health today. And so to have my mom go through that and her not want to choose the path that I chose, and her and I be so close, that was devastating. It was devastating to me. But I finally did before she passed, like at least a year before she passed. I accepted it and just I went with her. I went on it and her journey, not the journey I thought she should have, but the journey that she wanted to have. And it was really just absolutely freeing.
Do you think it was like a matter of like respect in the beginning that you felt like if she doesn't really like want to do it my way, did you feel disrespected? Like, can you think back to what exactly it was that was like really hurting you about her decision and like just in the very beginning?
I love that question because 100% yes, it felt disrespectful. And
Yeah.
as with all mothers and daughters, and I know we were going to keep this episode light, but this scenario doesn't lend itself to light. So with
No.
all mothers and daughters, there's always this friction, this chaos. Even though my mom and I were very, very close, we always came at things from a different perspective. And that
Yeah.
what I consider disrespect started a very long time ago in my youth because my mom was very old fashioned. Both of my parents were, and they saw a woman as her sole role to be in the home and taking care of her husband and staying home. And there's
Didn't know
nothing
that.
wrong with that. It just wasn't
Wow.
my path. Do you know what I like? It
I didn't know that.
Oh, you
Wow.
didn't really? I feel like I've talked
Yeah.
about that before on the podcast. No, I haven't talked about that. Oh,
No.
yes. So anything I did that was outside of that, my
Hmm.
mother never respected. So you bring up that word of respect. So I
Yeah.
never felt, in a lot of ways, everything I did, she was so proud of if it had to do with my kids or the home or cooking or taking care of the family, the things that she sees as like what I see is like the 1950s housewife kind of role.
Hmm.
And, we're seeing in America a push for a lot of people that want to do that now. So I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with that. I just know that that was never the path that I wanted to take. I needed more than my family to feel purposeful in this world. And so when she didn't respect those decisions, like me working outside the home, or when I chose to heal from my Crohn's in a different way than the medical system, she could not embrace that in any way, shape, or form. She just never did. Never, never, never. And so I felt, yes, I'm having this amazing experience, this life altering experience, and I'm feeling so amazing health wise. And
Yeah.
she's poo pooing on it. Like, so
Yeah.
there was, there's a history. I say that all to say that there's a history of what I would consider like disrespect or just not understanding each other because we came from such different places in our belief in what a role of a woman is in the world, that this was no different. Like, even as she's approaching death, we're still having this friction about how you should, heal your body. It was just constant. It was from the time I was little to the time she passed. And it took her having this diagnosis for me to finally let go of those expectations and say, it's okay. I'm going to take my journey and she's going to take her journey, and we can
Yeah.
still support each other. It's
Yeah.
all good. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not going to, because for a while, I think I looked down on her. Like, oh, why doesn't she want more out of life? Like, what's wrong with her? Has women's
Yeah.
liberation not happened in her world? And I realized it's like she's so fulfilled and happy. She's lived the life she wanted to live.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
why should I put my expectations
Mhm.
on her?
Mhm.
Acceptance, super freeing, super freeing.
Do you think she came to the same conclusion about you that you came to about her?
I don't think so.
Really?
I don't think she was as open as I was. I don't think so.
Okay.
I mean,
Yeah.
I don't think it was so overt that she was like berating me all the time about it. It's just I got praised for anything I did that had to do with the family, and everything else was just like, oh, that's good. It's not
Yeah.
like I was put down for it. It's just that it wasn't like I thought, oh my gosh, like this is gonna be amazing. My mom's
Mhm.
gonna be so proud of me.
Mhm.
No, like for things that were like my job, like when I went and got my master's degree or anything like that, it was just like, okay, well, that's your hobby. And but
Yeah.
you're really committed to Bill and the kids, right? So no, no. And again, I had to accept that too, that my mom was never going to come around to the way that I saw the world, and that's okay. And it's okay. It doesn't mean that we can't have a close disconnected relationship. We see the world
Mhm.
differently, but there's so many things that bond us together. Like you and I both, like we might want something outside. We might enjoy our work. We might
Mhm.
want to do other things in the world, but our families are the most important thing to us, right?
Yeah.
So I can still connect with her on that piece of it.
Well, I honestly think you're more like your mom than you're even willing to say.
You need to say
Um,
more about that.
but maybe that's speaking. Wait, what?
I said, say more about that. What do you mean?
Well, as you're saying all these things, I mean, the one thing I'm thinking to myself is, wow, Karen, you are like that. You are all those things that you said your mom, you know, was proud of you for. But yet you were also the other things that you wanted to do. I think you're like a hybrid, of the two. And you had a lot of characteristics in her that drove you to be the mother that you are. But then you had these other characteristics that drove you to be the career path lady that you are as well. So I think it's a very good example of how you did have your mother in you, but yet you also were able to, be an individual, and do things your way.
Yeah, 100%. Yes. I am my mother's daughter. That's why I'm like, people would think, well, how could you like somebody who can't support you? It's not that. It's not that. She did. She really was very supportive.
Yeah.
It's just that she didn't have the same that we didn't have the same values in every way, but in a lot of ways we did. Like when it comes to family, my family I put above everything. It's not that you know what I mean, but I want more than that. That's all. That's all. You know what I mean? That's it.
Yeah, and I would say too that it's probable that her feelings were also hurt, more so than her being upset or disappointed with you. Maybe she was like, well, why doesn't she want to think like I do? Why doesn't she admire me and my life? Why does she want to be a rebel against me? I think a lot of mothers and their children end up having that happen. And it definitely, I think, goes both ways.
Yeah, as we have kids, there's a part of us that wants them to be individual and be whoever they were meant to be in this world, even if it's so different from us. And then I think if we're being really honest, especially as moms, there's a part of us that wants them to be like us too.
Oh, yeah.
So to let go of what again, that word,
Mhm.
expectations, to let go of your expectations,
Yeah.
what you think they should do or the choices they should make, and really accept them. Like really, truly accept them for who they are, not what you think
Mhm.
they should be. That's
So do you
that
think
is
you need to?
universal.
So do you think you need to throw away? You know how we say imitation is the best form of flattery.
Right.
Do you think you have to, as a parent, kind of throw that? We're getting so off topic, it's not even funny, but it's okay. Do you think that imitation being the biggest form of flattery in my mind came to mind a lot with you and your mom's situation,
Yeah.
like really both ways. And again, you're right. You can tie that to your expectations. Like, don't expect that a person is going to be just like you, even though that could be super flattering to you. That could make you feel like, wow, look at me. I'm this
Well,
person.
actually,
I'm that kind of mom.
I know, right? I
Yeah.
yeah, but I don't know. I'd love to hear what you've done with your kids, but I've tried really hard to nurture and flourish my kids for who they are, not who I want them to be or expect them to be. And I'm not perfect. I'm just saying I try. Like I make a conscious effort to try. Now,
Mhm.
when they bring up something that is like close to my heart. Like when
Yeah.
Liam said, Mom, I really want to do musical theater. Did I completely light up? Yeah, I did. I completely lit up.
Yeah.
Yeah. When Dylan said, I think I might want to go to naturopathic school, I was like, what? That's so cool. So I do get excited when things that light me up light them up, but I'm also at every soccer game and I'm definitely not a soccer player. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So I've had to embrace that. I don't know. Have you made a conscious choice to embrace who your kids are rather than who you want them to be?
I think so. But I mean, it is kind of weird that all four of my kids tend to have like quite the mixture of Peter and I. And they haven't really, there hasn't been anything yet that I've had to be, oh man, this is difficult. I need to like work on this. I mean, they just, I say yet because they are still, the oldest one still hasn't gotten married. And I do think that sort of thing might come out later when with their spouse and when they have children. And then I'll be like, well, why doesn't he want to do it the way I did it? Or why doesn't she want to, like I think it's going to come into play more when the motherhood aspect and fatherhood aspect comes into play because right now they've all just followed that like it's just that path of going to school, being good students, being very faithful, in their faith and practicing in their faith to the point of actually exceeding me. And those three things are wonderful. But I think that they are going to become more individual and maybe how they parent, I have a feeling. And that might be where I end up having to just do a lot more accepting, I'm thinking. But who knows? I mean, I'm not sure.
And I
So,
feel like that might be more of an issue with sons than daughters because
mhm,
your daughter might parent more like how you parented. Maybe. I don't know. We'll see. It'll be interesting to see, but I agree with you that that will come up later on more when you see like what kind of parents are they and what do they let their kids do and don't
yeah,
do? Like are they super strict with them? What like yeah, do I see me in how they parent? That's going to be really interesting.
yeah. It'll be interesting. I know Pierre's family, they have four kids and three of them are very like-minded to the parents and one is not. And, I wouldn't call her the black sheep because she's not a black sheep, but she's very different in everything that she did. And that has been, that caused and has caused lots of interesting dynamics in the family because of that. But it didn't present itself until she got married and had children. So I really think that I'm bracing myself for what could come from that.
And
So
nothing may. I mean, you just don't know. You know what I mean? Like
yeah,
you just don't. You just have to wait and see.
right.
Again, it all goes back to expectations.
Expectations. Yeah.
Yeah, like what do I mean, I wish we could not have them. I wish we could just see what
Mhm.
unfolds. Like as humans, we're so wired to have expectations. I think it's because we like consistency and normalcy and we like to be able to predict how something's going to happen. It gives us a sense of control over things when it would really be better to just let life flow. But that's hard.
It is hard. And I know that expect, accept, adjust model is something that I think we probably could take that and apply it to every single relationship that we have. I think that, like, as you were talking, as ever since we started this, I was like, you asked me, can you think of a few examples? I can think of several, but I will tell you that the one that you gave of your mom is a really, really great example of that. And I think there's like a lot of examples in my head right now that are like kind of superficial and petty. I couldn't possibly follow you because what you were just sharing was like really good example of that. But I do think that that model can be used in so many of our relationships.
Absolutely.
Um, but I think what we'll do is kind of, like I told you last time that I wrote down some questions for you and I, like kind of like a little Q&A
Yeah,
as it pertains to expectations and friendships. Are you ready for that?
I'm ready. Let's do it.
Okay. So what I did was I wrote these questions down last time, and let's see. Okay, we talked about the tools. Okay, so we're shifting over to as it pertains to just friendships right now. Okay. Um, have you ever gotten your feelings hurt by an adult, let's say friends, because we know you just got your feelings hurt by your mom, you just talked about that. But how about by a friend that you like or love?
In general, have my feelings ever been hurt?
Yeah. Did you
Yes,
ever have like a friend that you were really close to and you got your feelings very hurt by that person?
of course. Yeah.
A lot, would you say?
Yeah. I mean, I definitely have had, I mean, I can go back and to childhood, and I can go back all the way through. But I just said those words to somebody this morning. What you did really hurt my feelings. But it was not a friend. It was one of my kids.
Yeah.
And I find that you can lead with anger and like, I'm really annoyed with you. And that was like, you shouldn't have done that. Like, you can get that defensive stance. But when you say to somebody, you really hurt my feelings, what you did really hurt my feelings. I think that's even much like if you want a true change and you want what happened to not happen again, I think that's the way to approach it rather than like to be vulnerable
Yeah.
rather than get angry or defensive.
And I think that speaks to you being able to not put that person um, on display or on the defense. You're just speaking from your heart, just simply saying, "This
And
hurts
that was
my
my
feelings."
goal. That was my goal because I knew,
Yeah,
especially again, I know we've already talked about family and you want to move to friends, but this is so fresh in my mind
yeah,
that I knew if I was going to approach this conversation as a mom, like a typical mom, like
yeah.
you're in trouble, blah blah. I knew I wasn't going to get anywhere. I'm just not going to happen. So it had to come from a place of because if I really searched in my heart, it wasn't, I'm not mad. It was hurt. I'm hurt. And so that's me being really honest with my kid, saying,
Yeah.
really hurt my feelings.
I love that, Karen. I think I don't know that I've ever been able to do that with my children, and I'm gonna try.
It wasn't about anything major. It wasn't like they like did something like completely
Mhm.
like terrible. It was more of a superficial situation. It was my son, Liam, my youngest. He had been reading this book in school about, so it sounds really interesting. It's called The Boy in the Striped Pajamas. And he had been so excited about it that he had been telling me chapter by chapter what was happening in the book. And it's
Yeah,
all about a boy who is German in a German family.
I know this
His
book.
dad runs a concentration camp and he's
Yes.
the boy in the concentration camp. Do you know this book?
Yeah. I read the book. Yes.
Okay, yes.
It's also a movie, by the way.
Okay, well, that's what hurt my feelings
Okay.
because there's a movie, and so he now is really excited to watch the movie with me. We have been hyping this up forever, and he starts watching the movie, and we rent it on Amazon. And with Amazon, you only have so long to watch it, and then it goes away.
Yeah.
And so he's getting really antsy as we're in the middle of the movie because again, back to expectations, he expected this movie would not take so long and he could get on Xbox with his friends. And so when it was taking longer than he thought, he was like, we have to fast forward. We need to get through this because I gotta blah blah. I have to do my, teenage boy things.
Yeah.
And I was like, wait a minute, what? But you know what? I said nothing last night. And except for just you said we were going to watch this together. I was really looking forward to it. Why are you changing plans? And he couldn't hear what I was saying. So I knew I'm not going to get into it right now. Just go let him play Xbox. I'm not going to force him to watch the movie. But then when I have him captive in the car on the way to school this morning, that's when I broached the subject because he can't go anywhere. So
Yeah.
that's when I said, you really like, so again, this is something trivial. It wasn't a big thing, but I wanted to let him know that really, like, in fact, I thought I'm gonna like tell him that was wrong. You shouldn't have done that. You made a commitment. But then I thought, you know what? No, the better way to handle this is to say, you hurt my feelings. Because if I look deep down in my soul, that's what happened. My feelings got hurt because he chose his friends
Yeah.
who were watching this movie with me that I was really looking forward to watching with him.
I like that. And I think that's allows him and his own emotional intelligence to process that and maybe react differently in the future. And you made him aware of something that he may not have been aware of, you know?
Yeah, and
Um,
yes, I think he reacted. There was a little hemming and hawing, but then I said, "Well, how do you think you can make this up? What do you think would be the appropriate thing to do?" And he thought about it for a while, and he's like, "Well, I guess since we can't watch the movie anymore, maybe I'll just pay for the movie." And I was like, "Perfect, yes." I think you should. I would love to know what our listeners think. What, like, is that too much? Me asking too much? But like, what is it? Like $4? Fine. It's not a lot of money. He has the money. So
Yeah,
like, is that a good way to make restitution? I think so.
I think so. It's a natural consequence, right?
I
So,
think so. Some parents would probably think it's too strict, but I'm going to take it.
yeah, I mean, that's what would happen in real life. So
Right.
it makes sense to me.
Yeah. So anyway, if you really want a friend angle, I bet you have one. But that was just fresh in my mind. So that's the one I
Oh
mentioned.
no, I think I mean we can go in and out of friends and relatives for
Okay.
these questions. That's no problem at all.
Okay.
I think some in some way, what you were talking about Liam though. I mean, the thing that came to my mind is that like how close the two of you are. That you know, I don't want to say that he's your friend because he's your son, but and you're very big on not being a friend to your child. But the situation with him was so friendly between a mother and a son, and it was so neat that you put yourself in that vulnerable spot to say that to him. That I don't know. I think that's neat.
Yeah, I don't always do that. So I'm glad that and the only way I could do that is because I took the time. I thought, I'm going to address this right now, right when it's happening. But I knew it
Yeah.
was going to be an anger response. And I thought, you know what? I've learned that over the years. I didn't do that so much with my older kids. I wasn't really good at that. But as I've gotten older and as I'm now this parent to this kid who's much younger than his brothers, I'm a much better parent to him than I was because I've learned, you don't have to give a consequence or yell at somebody or even deal with something right in the moment. You're allowed to take some time, process, and then come back to it.
Yeah,
What about you? What do you
absolutely.
think about that?
Yeah, I agree. I'm the same way.
Have you
Um,
been good at that as a parent?
have I done what as a
Have
parent?
you been good at that? At like not jumping and in and giving a consequence right away and sometimes stepping back and saying, okay, I'm
No,
not
I don't think I've always been good at that, but um, I definitely am the kind of person that if I lose my temper or speak too soon, I always do go apologize later and then explain it. And then I always seek understanding on their part as well. So, but I can't always say that I'm cool as a cucumber in the beginning, for
yeah,
sure.
gotcha.
So
And
it
you know
takes
what?
practice, I think.
I'm not very good at apologizing, so it's better for me if I just take my time and then
Yeah.
come back later. Yeah.
I know. I think that's great. It shows that you're using restraint, and not everybody is able to have that type of restraint. I think it takes a lot of practice. Um,
Yeah.
I'm working on that with my husband, especially because, I always joke that I feel like he's one of my children. I have five children, including my husband, and he was raised by a different mother than I was, and so there are times where I want to say to him, you know what, I know you were raised by somebody else, but you've been with me, more than 20 years. So in a way, you were raised by me too. So, come on now, do better,
Right.
Um, I find myself doing, losing my temper more with him, but I've been working really hard on, things like that. So like not reacting, just holding it. Basically, what I'll do is I'll 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 think about it for a while, and then I'll pray, and then I'll like decide what am I going to say after, if anything at all. So, but that's not normal me. Normal me would be like more reactive.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Sometimes it is best to say nothing and let something go. You have to decide, is this a big deal? I even thought to myself with this situation with Liam, do I really need to say something? And then I thought, well, if I approach it this way, I will. But sometimes, isn't it sometimes better to just say nothing? You have to pick your battles. I guess that's what I'm saying. You have to pick.
Karen, I'm real big on teachable moments.
Okay.
As a mother, I was always very big on teachable moments, and I think with my husband, I'm tired of the teachable moments, and he should know better by now. And
Yeah.
so with him, I do realize that sometimes not saying something is much stronger. So, but it's taken me a while to get to that point because the teacher in me is very much like, I'm going to teach a lesson here. They have to understand,
Yes.
blah, 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 blah.
Yep.
But I'm getting better about just the silence of it. Not the silent treatment, but just like, like you said, just sort of like contemplating and thinking about it or whatever it is you need to do to to get yourself to a point of being able to decide how to handle it the best. Time is in silence is really good.
Yeah,
I think it's the
I'm with
best.
you. I'm learning. I was not that way with the first go around. So yeah, I'm
Well,
learning.
I don't know. Your kids are all pretty great, so you did something right.
It doesn't really matter because my other two I think are well adjusted and fine. And I mean maybe they'll need more therapy. I don't know. I don't know. We'll
You
see.
know what?
We'll tell.
Don't we all need therapy? I mean, come on.
Right? Right. I know, but as a
There's-
mom, you don't want to be the reason your kids go to therapy.
What's that?
As a mom, you don't want to be the reason your kids go to therapy. No. It's probably inevitable. What can you do?
So, all right. So, all right. Now, this next question is definitely relating to friendship, and it has to do with popularity. Do you think, would you have considered yourself a popular person back in the day, I should say, back when popularity was popular
Maybe
at
like
that age? Hmm?
high school? Like what age are we talking?
High school, I think college.
No, like no. I was not popular in high school. And in college, I loved my college because there was no popularity, you know what I mean? Like you in quotes. Everybody found their people. And I
Yeah.
found my people. And I loved that there it wasn't a popularity contest. I don't know. What about you? I mean, I know because we've talked about this before. You would not have considered yourself popular in high school.
Yeah, no, I've never had a lot of friends. I've been more the type to have a couple close friends,
Yeah.
which leads me to the next point, which is inner circle. Um, your inner circle of friends.
Hmm.
And I did a little bit of searching on the web for some statistics
Okay.
because I've heard this discussion many times among women our age as it pertains to the loneliness project, and how you bring up FOMO sometimes. I feel FOMO. I feel like this topic and these statistics kind of can be parallel to this. Statistically speaking, for close friends, now first of all, let's define close.
Okay.
Okay, what would you how would you define close, like close friends?
That's a tough question, but let's say people who are part of my life more than an acquaintance. So I talk to you regularly or I see you or when something really good happens, you're the person that I want to let know or when something bad happens, you're the person that I'm going to get in touch with. Like I would consider those close. Those are the people in my inner circle.
Okay, I agree with that definition. And believe it or not, um, 53% of people have only between 3 to 5 close friends, inner circle friends. Okay, I can believe that. Do you agree with that? Can you believe that?
Yes, I
Yeah,
agree with that.
I would be in the 53%. 38% have 5 or more. Um, and then this statistic I think is very interesting. 8% have absolutely no close friends.
Did you say 80 or 8?
Eight.
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 Okay. 8%
Okay.
have no close friends. And these are, is this women or is this women, men? Who is
This is men and women.
men and women?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Huh.
And then older adults, 65 or older, are more likely to have 5 or more close friends of the same gender. So as you get older, you tend to bring in more close friends to your inner circle.
Well,
And
that's interesting.
yeah, and I think that makes sense because, if we talked about this before, when you and I had our children in school, we had these friends that we would see at, the swimming pool or
Right.
swimming lessons or on the soccer field or whatever. And at the time, those were our friends, right? Because we felt like we were chatting with them on the bleachers about life and things like that. And we may have considered them close friends at one point in our lives. But, you know, as people go on with their lives, they get new friends in different areas of their lives and things like that. And as you get 65 or higher, you are more settled into your life, and you are more settled into, you have your priorities probably a little bit more organized, like when you're going to see your grandchildren and your kids, and when you're going to go on your vacations. And so you end up developing and having more time to find people that are closer to you and want to be closer to you. And then this is probably the biggest reason for it is people 65 or older tend to start thinking more about their mortality, and they want to be sure that if something happens to them, they're not alone.
Right.
So,
Yeah, I agree with that. That's yes, very interesting.
yeah. But then you got to remember also 65-year old or older people to also still have be careful with your expectations, right? You can't change your expectations just because you're getting older and you have more time. I think you have to still be really careful with that.
Yes.
So, what do you think about that?
Yes, for sure. I mean, I really haven't given thought to like those statistics, but that makes sense. I wonder how that 8%, I think when you're talking about the 8% that has no close ties, no close friends, I wonder if you separated out men and women, if that would be different. Like, how, of
Yeah.
course it would be different, but how would that show up? And then with
Uh-huh.
regard to the 65 and older, maybe some of your expectations lower while others get more rigid. So maybe you meet somebody a first time and you say, like, I could go out with them again and see if it kind of they grow on me. But I'm 65 and I don't have time for that.
Yeah.
So I'm just gonna just forget that one. You know what I mean? And move on.
Yeah.
But of
Right.
the friends that you do have, maybe you're more accepting and
Hmm.
at things that they do because well, this is in their heart they're a good person, and I don't want to go having to make new friends, so I'm going to keep that friend. You know what I mean? Like you might be harder to make new friends, but the ones that you have, you're going to
Hmm.
hold on to and let have less maybe less expectations.
Yeah, I think that's very
Maybe.
true. I think that's true, and I think you're very right. If back to 8%. Yeah, my guess would be that the men that's like a higher percentage of men,
Yeah.
right? Although the more we talk about the topic of loneliness, I am learning that there, and I don't know, one day maybe Karyn, we can delve into the statistics of people who actually admit to loneliness. I'm willing to admit that I have heard that men are just as lonely as women.
Oh yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but I don't have any
That's
statistics
something
on
they talk about.
that. What's that?
It's just not something they talk about. As women, we talk about it,
Right.
right? Men are just not.
Yeah.
I think they would like to have more friends. I think they would like to have more connections. But even with the connections that they have, it's hard for them to have deep conversations because they don't know who can I open up to and who's not going to make fun of me for whatever thought I have. Where women don't tend to worry about that. We're just
Right.
more open with our friends, I think.
And I think about your dad a lot because he was married to a very gregarious, popular kind of woman. And from my memory, he was real quiet, right?
Yes, he's very quiet.
Okay. So, you can imagine after your mom passed away, and that, well, of course, he's in a place where there's lots of people, but he could still be lonely around lots of people
He
because he
was
was used
very
to
lonely
having,
until he found his girlfriend.
yeah,
Very lonely. Like I was really worried about it.
yeah,
Yeah.
right.
He needed to
So
take
I
his
don't know, maybe if anything, men can be more lonely than women. I don't know. I'm kind of starting to think about this a little bit more,
yeah. Yeah,
'Cause we
that's
go
interesting.
out and we get what we want too, because we are so self-aware, whereas they may just be more accepting. And like I know my dad, when my mom passed away, he just kind of the TV became his best friend. He had sports on, movies, not movies. He wasn't a big movie person, but he had sports on like Laurel and Hardy, the news. He didn't really. do much with people.
Yeah.
So
Oh, yeah.
yeah, so I do know my dad. I do know my dad was lonely, but maybe he was fine because he had his best friend on TV. I don't know. It is kind of sad,
That
but
is the question. Like, that is my question about that with men. Like, are they okay? Or is that all they need in their life? Like, was your dad satisfied? Or was
yeah.
he thinking, I wish that I had more connection with people in my life?
I know. I really would love to have known that about him. He was a very shy, introverted, quiet man, married to a very gregarious, outgoing woman, had 9 kids. Most of us siblings think that he was just kind of happy to just, chill out in his easy chair. But I don't know, he did have like a depressive affect, I think. Um, so yeah, I do think that he probably was lonely. I really do. I do think that. But I wish I would have asked him. I wish I would have been more aware of that kind of thing back then.
Yeah. All these
So,
things we think, I wish I could have asked my parent and now they're not here anymore. You know what I mean?
yeah.
It's tough. So you have to have those conversations while they're still living.
I
Anyone
agree.
still has a
I think so. And especially because, this forum is we mostly have women listeners, but I have a feeling that there are definitely some guys out there who would benefit from understanding themselves and what else is out there in the lonely area.
yeah,
So,
for sure.
but, okay. Next question. Let's see here. We talked about frenemies in one of our other podcasts. I want to put that out there in case there's any new listeners who kind of want to know, um, more about frenemies. Karyn did a really great podcast on frenemies. And Karyn, refresh my memory. You had one or two frenemies, right?
I've had frenemies, sure.
Okay. Okay. And I definitely, since I learned about what a frenemy is, I definitely have come to recognize that there have been a few more in my life than I realized. Um, and I would say though that none of them I ever considered like true inner circle, thankfully. Like I've never had a true inner circle friend who ended up becoming a frenemy. And I'm thankful for that because I think that can be heartbreaking if you have this person who you consider to be so close and how you feel for them and you're one of five best closest friends and you come to find out that they were actually a frenemy.
That would
You
be the
agree?
worst. Yes, I've never had that either. The frenemies revealed themselves right away, and I knew they were a frenemy. That would be awful to have somebody in your inner circle that you think is, and then, really good friend, and then be betrayed by them.
Yeah. I
Yes.
have a feeling that happens.
I do know somebody that happened to.
You do?
Yeah, a husband and a wife were really good friends with another couple. And then so there were a bunch of them were in an inner circle. Like they were all neighbors and they all hung out together. And then one of the male partners and then the female partner ended up getting together when the two girls, were really close friends. So it's basically a betrayal, but that's not a friend of me. That's just a betrayal. That's just a betrayal. I don't know that it was a friend of me situation, but like if you found out that I was having an affair with Pierre, it would be like,
Yeah.
yes,
That would be one of the worst betrayals. And we know that that does happen, right? That to close friends because couples do tend to, it's hard to find a husband wife pair that the husband get along really well and the wife get along really well. Do you think that's kind of rare? I do.
I hope that's very rare. But in this
Yeah.
case, I think that there were signs.
Yeah.
So I was like, were you not paying attention when he was going over there and changing the light bulb and hanging out? Like, what do you think he's doing over there? You know what I mean? Like, why don't you go over with him? Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm not saying it's not her fault, but I'm just saying that
Yeah.
would be like to me, if my husband was doing that, I would say, what's up with that? I think I'm gonna come too.
I would too, Karen. I would too. And that's when that word trust that I hate so much, I would just throw that out the window because you can't just say, oh, I trust him. He's
Right.
going, you know. Well,
Yeah.
what's the truth here? The truth is that he's going over to your friend's house and he's fixing a light bulb. No, 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 no.
Exactly. Right? Like that's yeah, like why aren't you more on top of that? I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, not again, that doesn't excuse the husband's behavior, but I do think that there probably were some signs in that particular case.
Okay. So next one is this person could fall under the popular person, but it's also there's a little bit of a subcategory to it, and this is and I'm talking about in your friendship group, they could be the all are welcome kind of people.
Okay.
And so it goes along with the popularity, kind of back in high school where it was a person who was just had so many friends. And we see these people in our adult lives too. We come across them. We might have been invited to their bunko party or their wine tasting party at one point, or we might have even been invited out to dinner. But as you grow to like that person because they're so likable and so social, um, you realize that you are not quite to them what they are to you. Have you heard this
Oh,
before?
that's interesting.
Yes. Have you ever come across anybody like that?
I'm trying to think if I would say there's anybody like that.
I
I
definitely
can't
have.
come up with an example, but I
Yeah,
know what you're talking about.
I definitely know people like that. And you don't always know you you might connect with them because of their friendliness and their openness, right? And you want to be around them more because of that kind of energy.
Yeah,
And you might even be the person who's inviting them to do things a lot, but it doesn't get reciprocated
gotcha.
because or it might get reciprocated but in a way where everybody's included and to the point where now you're not quite in the inner circle that you were hoping to be in. I know that happens to women our age. I know it does.
Yeah,
It's happened to me for sure.
I can remember a time on one of my kids' soccer teams where I don't know if you've been in situations like this where it's a kids' activity and there's spectators. So the parents are the spectators. So it could be a soccer match, or it could be band, or it could be theater. I mean, it could be anything, any kind of swimming, whatever, where the parents and don't you just know there's always like a cool group of people in there, right? There always is that. And
Yeah.
so I
Yeah.
remember befriending some of the people who had been there. Usually it's people who have been there longer, like they're the cool people. So I
Uh-huh.
remember them kind of like taking me in, but then I found out that they were doing things and not including me. So that's kind of similar to what you're talking about. I feel like I wasn't actually in with them like I thought I was. Like they weren't really my true friends. They were just maybe they saw me as an acquaintance where I saw them as being closer.
you know right. And or they had just have so many friends and so many people they know that they don't quite know how to always include everybody because it's always all are welcome. And in the all are welcome kind of realm comes into play that the person isn't necessarily able to think about every single person because they're all just like all are welcome. Um
Does a
and
situation
so
like that, like if that's happened to you, does that offend you? Or do you just feel like they can't possibly think about me? They have all these other friends to think about. Because that's kind of how I saw it. It didn't I
yeah, I think as you realize, I think, as you realize what kind of friend they're, and I do think it's important when you meet people and when you are getting somebody into your inner circle, it's often needs to become reciprocal, right?
Mhm.
Or just like when you're dating, or you're the only one putting the effort in. And I think that becomes apparent very early on with those kind of people. I truly believe it becomes apparent. And
Yeah.
you do lower your expectations then and put them into the maybe well if I ever have a party they'll be on my party list or they'll become the Christmas card person
Right.
um,
I
list.
would
But yeah,
say,
I agree. I think those are the people that maybe you could even put them under, would you put them under the flaky friend even possibly category? I
it's
don't
kind of a
know.
version of a flaky friend, but they're
Uh-huh.
not really being flaky. They're not just not thinking of you. You know what I mean? There's a
Yeah.
slight difference there. And
Yeah.
it's not that important to them. It's like they're
Yeah.
just not that into you, right? So it doesn't apply to doesn't just apply to relationships, it can apply to friendships too. They're just not that into you.
You're just not
They
into you,
are.
and
It's
you
potential.
can't get your feelings hurt. It's not personal. It's not
Not
about
personal.
you, right?
Yeah,
It's
maybe
just
the
there.
younger me would have gotten more upset about that, but the older me is like, whatever. Like it just doesn't.
Yeah.
It's not personal. It's not personal.
Yeah. But I would say that this happened to me when I was a little bit when we lived in a gated community style neighborhood where um, it was very, very social. And the expectation was that you were going to be invited because that was the that's how it just seemed to go, and then you started realizing that some people were, you know, there were like some catty women who would jump out and present themselves. And yeah, you could, when it first happens to you, you could end up being very hurt by that. But like you said, as you get older and you've experienced that more, you do, or if you've seen your children encounter that, you end up like being like, okay, warning, warning, warning.
Exactly.
Low expectation friends, right?
Yes, low expectation
So
friend.
yeah,
Exactly. And I'm just going to kind of back off from that a little bit because I know
yeah.
that person's never going to be in my inner circle, and that's okay.
Okay, so next question. I only have one more.
Okay.
Um, at this stage in your life, how do you feel about meeting new people? Are you looking for more friends in your inner circle or are you good?
Oh, that's such a good question. Um, I would always take more friends. I know a lot of people that are this age, they say, "No, I'm good. I've got my inner circle and I don't want to be friends with anybody else." But if I connect with somebody, because to me, it's really rare. I find that I'm weird. So I don't like there's like the traditional kind of people and I don't really fit in with them. And then there's the really kind of weird hippy dippy people. I don't really fit in with them either. I'm kind of like somewhere in the middle and I could get along with both of those. So when I meet somebody that I like truly connect with, it's very rare. And so I just put a lot into that because I know it does it's like lightning in a bottle. It happens to
Mhm.
me every like 10 years that there's somebody that I'm so just like, oh, I love this person so much. I would go to the ends of the earth for them. That I like, yes. But if I know, but I'm quicker now in my older years, I'm quicker to say, no, no. And I'm not going to put more time into figuring out if I like them or not. I'm just, no, they're not for me. So I'm quicker
Like
to
like speed dating.
say that again.
Like speed dating.
Yeah, like speed dating, exactly. But if I think somebody has potential, yes, I'm always bringing new people into the inner circle when it happens. It just doesn't
Yeah.
happen that it just doesn't happen that often that I connect with people because, like I said, I'm weird.
Yeah, I do think it's rare. I agree. And I'm the same as you. I'm open to it for sure. But I don't think it happens very often. And that's fine because I think you're like me in that when you do have a friendship and it is a close one, you do want to be able to give into it what it deserves. And and so I'm always very cognizant of like what I can handle. I remember when you and I were mag together, um, when you were the president and I was the VP. I can
Medical
remember just
auxiliary
like,
for those
what's that?
medical auxiliary group for those who don't know what we're
Oh,
talking
that's true.
about.
Yes.
It's a spouses club in the military, and I think that's all you have to know. It's just a club.
Okay.
But
Yes, exactly.
and fun.
I can remember like that was a thing where, you know, we might have been considered the popular girls at the time because we were on the board and we were planning all the cool events and meeting all the new people. And I remember back then feeling like really badly because we would be at events and there were always new people coming in. And I know when I first got there, I was like really excited to always meet new people.
I
And then
think you
after a
were a
while,
welcome person for a while, weren't you?
what's that?
Did you do the welcoming for new people for a while?
Yeah, I was the welcome girl. I would go
Yeah,
meet them and bring them treats and give them the whole, you know, do the whole thing with the newsletter and such.
so cool.
But after a while, it started tiring out, and I started wanting to just have my little clique of friends that, we had made. And I can see how that can happen in life in general, how when you're out there searching for your good friends, you are way more open. But like once you have those committed friendships, it makes it a little bit harder to be the kind of friend you want to be to so many people, you
Yeah,
know?
such a good point. I mean, it just
Yeah.
shows that I'm sure everyone listening can say, I've been on both sides of it,
Yeah.
right? Like it just takes a lot of energy when you already have a, for lack of a better, just a clique or what you call an inner circle
Mhm.
of people who you really connect with. It takes a
Yeah.
lot of energy to then bring more people in and to give energy to finding those people when you already have these people. And then when you're on the outside of it, I just feel like I said earlier, I just don't think you can like take it personally because
Yeah.
usually it has nothing to do with you. It's that they have their
Right.
circle and they can't take any more in.
Yeah. But I will say though, maybe because of my own circumstances in the past, my own experiences, I can tell you that if I meet a friend who is putting a lot of effort in and really seems to want to connect with me, I love that. And that person makes me, hey, they're making it a little bit easier for me to be friends with them, because they're giving in and they're giving what I need to help me like get closer to them.
Yeah, yeah.
So, it's nice when you meet a friend who it's 50%, right? Like you don't have to, like you just right away, it's easy and you know that you're going to connect. Whether you have a lot in common or not, you just seem that you both have the desire to have a friendship.
Yeah, but like
Um,
I feel like you said and I said, it just doesn't happen that often.
no,
You
it
know,
doesn't.
when you're
It doesn't.
younger and your kids are younger and you're constantly at new activities,
Mhm.
there's always new people to meet. It's just later in life. They're just yeah, it just doesn't happen as often.
It doesn't. So now if you, let's see, do you tend to like people right away or do you have to warm up to somebody, would you say?
I know typically very quickly whether I like somebody or not. Do I want to? I don't know if I want them in my inner circle, but I know very quickly. Do I want to put the time in to find out?
Okay.
It's like my
Yeah, I
kids
agree.
laugh at me when we go shopping in a department store or at the mall because I can go into a store and take one look around and I'll tell you, is there anything for me in here? I can tell you in 2 seconds. It's the same thing. It's like speed dating, like you said. It's like friends.
Yeah.
I know right away. Do I want to put the effort in, or do I want to keep this friend as an acquaintance, or do I really never want to talk to that person again because I'm so offended by the things that are coming out of their mouth? There's just not a connection. So I
Yes.
know quickly. I don't know. What about you?
Same. And I remember reading a book by Malcolm Gladwell. I can't remember which one. I think maybe it was Blink.
Okay.
He said that you can make up your mind about somebody or something in the first 3 seconds
Oh, really?
of the
Three
brain.
seconds. Holy cow,
Mhm.
that's really fast.
That's really fast. But I do think that's kind of true because like that initial just click is that's it's sort of unspoken and it's weird.
Yeah.
I think a lot of
You
people
had
would say
that.
that.
You and I had
But
that
that
click. The first time I met you, I was like, oh my gosh, this person's going to be in my life forever. Like,
Yeah, I mean, that's right. Like it's not explainable, right? You
yeah,
just,
it's like an
you
energy
know,
force or something. It's not explainable.
it's not. It's not. Okay, so last question. This is about forgiveness and things like that. You already said that you don't really love to apologize, so you try not to have to do things to make you apologize. I agree with that.
Super
How are
honest
you?
and very bad. Yes, I'm terrible at apologizing. My husband will tell you.
Okay, but it sounds like you don't really do that many things bad enough to apologize for, in all fairness to you.
Well, it depends on who you ask. My husband would say otherwise.
Okay.
I think I'm just amazing and perfect, right? No, I mean, I'm sure there's a lot more things I do that I should apologize for, and I'm working on it. I'm really, really working on it. But um, I'm
That's
not
all you can
I'm
ask.
not good at apologizing.
Okay.
I'm still
But you're aware of that and you're working on it.
yep,
And that's what
for sure.
matters.
For sure.
That's what matters. So, by the same token, or the opposite way, I should say, are you able to forgive an apologizer?
Depends on the transgression. To me, I can forgive, but I may not forget.
Yeah.
So some things are really, it's not that they're unforgivable, but they will stay with me, and I'll say this has irrevocably changed my relationship with this person.
Yes.
It's like that Maya Angelou quote, when people show you who they are the first time, believe them. So I if somebody has really hurt me, I can forgive, but I'm probably never going to it's never going to be the same. The relationship is never going to be the same. If it's something small, then yes, of course. I mean,
Yeah.
of course I can. But so it depends. It depends on what it is. For
Okay.
me, I don't know. What about you?
Yeah, I can forgive pretty quickly, and because I feel like if a person is putting themselves out there to be apologetic and they feel badly, I can 100% respect that, because I know how it feels as a person who is needs apology. I'm an apology person myself. My mistakes. But like you, Karen, I build up my walls at that point, and the relationship is different for me.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't usually go back. And that is the bad side of me.
Yeah.
I'm not able to like rebuild the foundation, unfortunately. And that's probably a bad thing for sure. Don't you think? That's kind of bad.
That's such a good question, and that could be a whole episode. Like,
Mhm.
should you really forgive, and what should you forgive, and what is unforgivable? I mean, I don't want to be something I really don't like to be is a doormat. So I you can't continue to apologize for me and do the same thing, because then eventually your apology becomes hollow.
Mhm.
So I really think there are
Right.
some things that you should not forgive.
Yeah.
But I also think we should not let our pride and spite get in the way. And if someone is
Mhm.
really sorry and it's not something that's so detrimental, I think we should try, right? I think we should try to forgive. But if you do it over and over and over and it means a lot to me, then I don't know.
Yeah,
That
I think forgiving comes easily to me. It's the forgetting part that, just doesn't I don't do well with.
Yeah, because
And
I mean, forgiving is so important, because when you don't forgive, the only
mhm.
person that's hurting is you.
Right,
You're not
right.
the other person is probably doesn't even care.
They don't even know,
You
right.
who is
Yeah.
chipping away at your soul.
Yeah.
And so you have to forgive for you, for your own lightness and peace. You have to
Mhm.
forgive, I feel like. But
Mhm.
forgetting, that's a whole different thing. I don't know, Pam. I think it really I think there are some situations where you need to be strong and say, I no. I have forgiven, but I will not forget. I don't think you need to forget in every case.
Yeah, and it too, it probably also matters on how often you see the person, what are they in your life? Can can you rebuild something if you don't see them very much anyway? You know?
Right. If you don't see them very much anyway, or maybe you distance yourself because of this, whatever
Right.
happened. And maybe that's okay, And the thing is, people don't have to be completely cut off because of it, whether it's a friend or a family member or a coworker or
Mhm.
whatever. You just
Mhm.
might say, okay, now I just see that friendship differently. I see that relationship differently. And that's okay. That doesn't mean that they're out of my life completely. Something would have to be really bad for somebody to not, I don't even know if I could even think of anything that's happened to me like that. But it may change the nature of a relationship forever.
Yeah. Yeah, and people can get their feelings hurt easily, for things that another person just has no idea why, and What can you do about it? You have your feelings, you can't dismiss them. So,
Yep.
but well, those are all the questions I have for you as it pertains
That
to
was a
expectations.
whirlwind conversation. I don't even know what to call this episode. Like we
What'd you
ran
say?
the gamut. Like we talked about everything today.
Yeah.
This was cool. I love those questions.
I just kind of jotted down questions as I thought of them, and I'm like, oh, I was Karen this. And when I was like kind of writing these questions down, I was listening to another podcast where they talked about the happiness of women today, female happy. There's some. Have you heard? And maybe we can talk about this at our next podcast. Okay, it's called, and maybe you heard of it, the female happiness paradox. Have you heard of that?
Mm-mm.
Okay. It might not be a whole podcast, but it's really, there's some statistics out there about female happiness in this day and age. And it isn't just for women over 50, it's just women in general. There's been some research and statistics out there. So much to the point where the reason they call it a paradox is as it pertains to happiness. Um, just like in a nutshell, women nowadays go out there and take much more charge of their happiness than they ever have in like our moms when they were younger, or maybe even you and I when we were raising our families. There's women out there who are like, nope, this is what I want. This is what I'm going to do. This is going to make me happy. And the reason it's called a paradox is because statistically speaking, mental health issues and loneliness among women is at an all-time high.
Oh, interesting.
So I
How do you
find that to be,
reconcile that?
what's that?
How do you reconcile that? The woman who's
Right,
doing everything to be happy, yet she's more lonely than ever.
right. And so
That's a fascinating topic.
I think it would be a good topic because we could maybe dive into like what are potential reasons why this happens to women,
Yeah.
of all ages, What do you
Yeah.
think?
I love that topic. I think there's a lot to dive into there. We should do that
Yeah.
next time. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. We have our
Yeah.
topic for next time, dear listener.
Okay.
So,
And as always, listeners, if you are have any ideas or if anything we said today ticked you off or resonated with you, please send us a message or make a comment on our YouTube comments, whatever it is you want to do. We're very happy to have a discussion with you further. I hope that you got a little bit of insight into Karen and I and how we view friends and
and expectations.
yeah, and our expectations. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So there's that little box right where you're listening to this podcast right now. It's at the top. It's at every episode and it says text me or text us. I think it says that's where you can get in touch with us. So get in touch with us. Let us know what your thoughts are about this episode. We can't wait to hear from you or leave us a comment if you are watching this on YouTube.
sounds great, Karen. It was good talking to you.
As always, it's good talking to you. Okay. Bye, my
Have
friend.
a, have a wonderful weekend.
All right, you too.
Bye.